Welcome back. All right, let's take a look at the best performing, top 5 best performing stocks in the first half of 2024 and gains minted. We see Julie PLC there topping the counter, 1,500% gains for the first half of 2024. Geregu Power PLC comes in second, 150%. Veritas Capital, 148%. Julius Berger there, 127.91%. And Dangote Cement comes in at the 5th position, 105% gains. So definitely if you invested in these, you're definitely smiling to the bank because you've outperformed inflation and currency devaluation as well. Let's bring in Mr. Ayodeji Ebo, who's the MD Optimus by Afrinvest. Great to have you on the show. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Nadi. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so looking at the gains so far from these stocks, quite an incredible first half of 2024. Talk to me about how you can actually identify these kind of stocks before they go up this high, in this market, so you can actually key into the second half of 2024. Talk to me about that.
Okay, thanks. I think the first thing is to look at the sector where those stocks are playing and the activity. So you look at Julie, for instance, what is happening is mostly you see the activity going that space is really very lean, which means that just a few people are selling within that space, and some people are trying to take particular, maybe sometimes you have people trying to take particular position in some company, maybe based on the expectation to turn around that company. And if you have very few people trying to sell, that's what I would say for Julie Pharmacy, because when you look at the amount, the units that moves the shares is not significant. But when we look at the likes of the Geregu Power, Dangote Cement, so for some of them, it was strategic. You would see for Dangote Cement, for instance, was when they announced the share buyback, was also part of what led to the move that we saw. However, we observed that there's been less activity even in the stock, which is also making it sustain that particular momentum, that level where it stayed, compared to how we used to see volume in and out, and that will lead to the ups and downs in that particular stock. So you look at Geregu too, for instance, the activity within that stock too is also very limited. So, but in identifying most of these stocks, maybe ahead of time, most times it's the strategic positioning of maybe the company trying to look at you have to look at where they play. So you would see Julius Berger, for instance, that major gain that we're also seeing. If you would agree with me that we know that construction is a major area that has picked up, and sometimes you have some strategic investors trying to acquire these stocks even at any level. They want to get a board seat. And when you begin to see week on week, they don't just gain, the maximum amount you can gain in the market is 10%. You will see like Julie Pharmacy, for instance, when it was still at maybe 2 naira, 3 naira, I tracked it, saw it, but you will see that there's no major supply at that level. But when you look at the other 4, for those ones, when you begin to see volume or you see them consistently appearing on top peaks for the week, you can begin to ask questions on what is actually happening in those stocks. And when you get the right answer, so that is fundamentally driven, not speculative, because if you go right on speculative, you can also lose your funds. Just like we are talking about top gainers, there are also top losers within that particular half of the year. So by and large, you have to be very close to the market and also look at how policies are also shaping some of these companies and decisions that the management and the board of those companies are making.
All right, going into H2 at this point, what sectors do you think investors should actually be looking at for the second half of 2024 if you're trying to beat inflation, at this point?
Okay, I think one of the attractive sectors that investors should look at is the telecommunication sector. Yes, we've had, because of the FX losses, the companies within that space, their profitability is being impacted. However, we know that when you look at the revenue top line, when you break it down based on data, voice, the PSB license, it continues to grow, and there continue to be opportunities. So investors, when they see that when prices are a bit low to a level, you buy in, or you begin to buy in tranches and position ahead. It is not when they turn to profit, but that's also what happens. It's not when they turn to the profit level that you now want to buy the stocks. The agri sector too is also an area that we should also look at, that provide prospects for most of these companies. Even with they still sell internally almost 95% of their produce, and if it means that if they even expand, there's still opportunity for them to export. So it needs to grow if there's no major policy shock on them. The banking sector, while there's really activities, now there's a lot of activity going on around capitalization. Investors will need to choose whether they are taking up their rights, whether they are buying in the market, whether they are buying offers, which will also increase outstanding shares. And most times that also will depress prices. But for long-term investors, it's when prices are down that you should begin to take position for the long term. So they will present long-term activity or long-term attractiveness as we progress. So those sectors, the cement sector, will still feel there's potential there, given the construction contract within that space.
Right, so much to unpack there, but I guess the mantra still stands: buy when the market is fearful and maybe sell when the market is greedy. Thank you so much. Always great having your perspective, Mr. Ayodeji Mabel, who's the MD, Optimus by AfriInvest. Thank you so much. All right, so that's it from me on Business Morning. We'll give you a summary of stock market close later in the day. I'll hand things over now to the Sunrise Daily team.